Welcome back to our channel, and today's video is all about the barn owl, specifically plop hair. She's nearly 10 years old, and that sounds quite a long time, doesn't it? Most dogs only live to 10 or 15 years old. Well, I can tell you now, barn owls like plop hair, they live to be 20 to 25 years old in captivity with someone that looks after them properly and looks after them well. To give you some idea how tough conditions are for wild animals and for barn owls, any predator, conditions are hard for you, especially if you live where there's a harsh winter. Most wild barn owls never get to see their first birthday. Maybe, where are you going? Maybe 8, that's a grumpy sound, maybe 8 out of 10 never get to see their first birthday because they drown when they're bathing in things they can't get out of, sometimes cattle troughs. Especially they get run over by vehicles because they hunt at quite a low level, they fly quite low from the ground really. But most of the time, like most predators, they simply starve to death because they're not good enough at hunting in the winter when there's just so little food around. They don't adapt well, they're not good enough, it's nature. If there was millions and millions and millions of barn owls flying around because they all live to a ripe old age, you wouldn't want to be a vole, a shrew or a mouse, that's for sure. Those that get through their first winter in the wild, they're pretty, sort of prove themselves, they're pretty good. They've managed to be really successful in the hardest time of the year, and they'll go on to breed. Now most barn owls in the wild, if they survive their first winter, live to be about Sorry, I'll stroke you some more. Live to be about 3 years old. A good age is a 5-year-old barn owl in the wild, and an exceptional age for a barn owl in the wild is 8 years old. And yet, Plop's already 10. She's going to live at least another 10 years with me. Crazy. Shows how tough it is in the wild. Plop's job here at Raptor Exotics is to travel the UK, visiting schools more than anything else, to educate people about the natural history of Britain, about wildlife in general, and obviously specifically about owls. And thankfully, all primary schools in the UK run topics that are nature-based as part of their curriculum. She also travels the UK to country shows and fairs and things like that, where she gets to fly free outside for people to see her, and again, educational and interesting for those guys in the audience. She's an ambassador for her kind. In schools, she doesn't just have a head fluffed like this and sit still because it might look a bit cute. It'll soon get a bit boring. Don't worry, we're going to cut this video with various things of things moving and owls flying and other things we can tell you about Plop. She flies in every school hall she goes to, sometimes in large classrooms. And we can talk about the silent flight of owls. As she flies over children's heads, we can prove physically a tangible thing that we're telling young children about owls for sure. Owls fly silently, as an owl silently flies over their heads. She's great at what she does. She's only good at her job because she's hand-reared. Now, the majority of birds of prey I work with are reared, they're all captive bred, they're not stolen from the wild, they're all captive born, but they're reared once they're fully grown and fully feathered by their, take that back, they're reared by their parents until they're fully grown or fully feathered, and then we start to train them. If you're going to work with any owl, the only kind way is to hand-rear it from a tiny owlet, from an egg, a 10-day-old to maybe a 2-week-old owlet. Once you start hand-rearing it from that age, it imprints on you. It thinks you're its mum or dad. Alright, I'll keep stroking you. It thinks you're its mum or dad. And that way, it becomes super tame with you. It believes you're its mum and dad. It has no fear of you. And it also means, while they're young and impressionable, not scared of anything naturally at that age, before they've got their flying feathers, you can take your owl everywhere with you because they grow up in a clear stack and stall box as their nest. It doesn't have a lid on, but it's their snuggly nest. We put towels in there for them to grip onto and cuddle up in. Sometimes we put a fluffy owl toy in there, a bit of company. but it means we can take them everywhere we go. So she's been going to school since she was just 3 weeks old, so she gets used to that environment. As a falconer, we often say they're not very clever. And to be honest, in the bird world, owls are not very clever, but they're much cleverer than we really give them credit for. But if you take an owl to train it, when it's fully grown and fully feathered, the way its brain works, it will always be an owl. It won't want to come out in the daytime very often. It will be constantly terrified of the human world. They just don't think around it like the daytime birds do. The only way I'll keep stroking you. The only way to work with an owl really kindly is to hand rear it and imprint it. Imprinting just means it's imprinted on you, it thinks you and now its parents. Works with all birds, but we need to do it with owls. And if you watch Plop here, I defy anyone to say, oh, she's not enjoying having her head scratched. She is. I've known her for 10 years. You heard her making a grumpy sound when I stopped. And you might think, how cute is that? Look at that owl. I wonder if I can get an owl for my children. I'd love to do that, or for myself. Barn owls are bred in captivity here in the UK. Far too many of them, and they're incredibly cheap to buy. And the biggest advice I'll ever give anyone about keeping owls, don't ever get an owl. Don't ever get a pet owl. Because as cute as this looks, 99% of barn owls that are bought as pets end up leading the most miserable life. Here's what happens. They live for over 20 years. There's hardly any barn owls bought as pets that stay with that owner for 20 years. People just get bored of them because they're disgusting pets. They make awful noises. They do gallons of smelly poo. They cough up pellets, sick up pellets of undigested food. It's your job to pick that up every single day. They cannot be kept as a house pet unless you want an absolutely disgusting, stinking house. So they need a good flight coming off something like a shed, a darkened space in your garden. Very quickly, and for children, 2 weeks is the max time for sure. Very quickly, you get bored of them. You get bored of them and you stop bothering to go down the garden, to get them out, to interact with them. And as soon as you stop doing that for a few weeks, your barn owl that you've hand reared, super tame, just mentally reverts back to its wild state. It's never come from the wild. It reverts back to its wild state. And unfortunately, you just get bored of it. You may throw some food in every day, and it might spend its days living alone in a relatively small space. Or you might think, well, I've seen these guys like Dave on Raptor Exotics flying his house free every day. How wonderful. I can interact with it, but I can let her fly free over a bit of meadowland, somewhere I've got permission. No, this is what you really do. You think, I can fly my owl free. I've got a nice sized garden. What happens is, one day your owl thinks, oh, I wonder what's over the fence. I know where my mum and dad is, if you like. I'll just have a look over the fence. Then you've lost your owl because you can't walk over that fence. And you think, well, my owl always comes back. It doesn't. Because the local crows see your owl and they're pre-programmed to hate owls and to try and drive them away and kill them. So your owl gets terrified. All of a sudden, all the local crows, they call each other, they gang up, they frighten your owl away. You can't follow it because it's going across other people's gardens. And your owl gets lost. And the reason it gets lost is because, realistically, a barn owl in 2020, to buy a chick from a breeder would cost you £100. Kids' pocket money. It's just not fair on them. And you know what? Telemetry, radio tagging equipment to help you track any bird of prey you fly wild and free should be on that bird. It's going to cost you new. About £600 to £800. People think, I bought a barn, it's only £100. I'm not spending £600 on radio tracking equipment to help me find that owl. I'll just get another one. Honestly, it's true. Don't ever get a pet owl. But let me tell you some super things about barn owls. They've got amazing camouflage, different from the other owls, counter shading, pale below, so animals below, even at night, little animals, voles and shrews, their tiny eyes, as they look up into the night sky from their grassland habitat, the pale colour below an owl, a barn owl, actually doesn't show up like a dark shadow against the night sky above them. I'll stroke you some more in a minute. Her dark camouflage on the back. Remember, she's hunting at low level, maybe only a couple of metres or less from the ground. Other birds, certainly at twilight, she comes out even when it's light in the evening sometimes. Other birds of prey above her, they can't see her quite as well, because from above, looking down into the grassland, especially when she's caught something, mantling over it with her wings, camouflage, she doesn't get spotted from above. And equally when she's asleep, wrapping those dark wings around her, blends into the stony barns and such places, old holy willow trees in meadowland, where she nests and roosts and sleeps. She's got a heart-shaped face, different from the other owl groups. They have a kind of a facial disc, a round face. She's got a heart-shaped face. Absolutely beautiful. That face is only there to collect sound. And the sound is then, with the special feathers on her facial disc, her heart-shaped face though, it's funneled into her ear holes. Now if you see an owl, like an eagle owl, or a long-eared, a short-eared owl, in fact a lot of woodland owls, you'll notice they've got sticky up ear tufts. Look just like their ears, they're just ear tufts. Tufts of feathers that look like ears. They're not ears. An owl's ears are funny openings, a bit like yours. They don't have these. Funny openings on the side of their head. And I'm hoping we can lift the camera up and show you her ear holes. This is a barn owl's ears. Have a look at this. Have a look at her actual ears here. Can you see that? Look at that. That's... Oh, she's embarrassed. That's her actual ear openings. How strange. She's got super sensitive hearing. This girl's hearing is so good. She can easily, even in complete darkness, where even owl eyes don't, no eyes work in complete darkness, her ears can pick up exactly where the squeaks of a shrew are, the rustle of a vole is, the footsteps of a mouse, not just, oh, there somewhere. Pinpoint accurate hearing. Owls are hearing specialists. They hunt mostly by hearing, most owls. If you look at owls with a rubbish facial disc, not very round at all, like a snowy owl, you've generally got an owl that's very visual with its hunting and doesn't have quite such superpower hearing as our barn owl Plop here. She can't see colour. She doesn't need to. She comes out when everything's turned grey in the darkness. She's got eyesight that picks up on movement much better than colour vision. Movement to her helps her find food. Colour vision does not at all. Her face is divided in the centre here and surrounded by a ruff. Two halves to her face, just like two ears. One half feeding sound to this ear, one half feeding sound to the other ear. She's got huge talons. She's a bird of prey. I'm not going to be your slave of love. She does occasionally kill things like voles with a bite to the head from her sharp beak. But birds of prey catch and kill really with these huge talons. And if you're hunting someone like a vole or a shrew, something with a tubular sausage-shaped body, 3 talons forward and 1 at the back, like most birds of prey, isn't the best way. 2 forward and 2 back catches that sausage-shaped animal much easier. So she can flip this one around here. This outside toe is zygodactyl, a funny word. She can flip it round to the back. 2 back and 2 forward. Chutney here is a half-grown rat. Just perfect prey for any barn owl, for sure. And let's have a look at some of her features and the sort of general shape of them. That means those zygodactyl talons flicking around to the side really help catch this long cylindrical body shape, typical of most small mammals. She's got a long naked tail. That helps her climb and balance. It also means if she overheats, she can send more blood to her tail, cooling her down, just like a car radiator. She's got Beautiful beady eyes. Very poor vision. Have a look at this. Very poor vision. Whiskers. Twitching all the time. Feeling her way around. And a twitchy nose into everything. Smelling. By the way, owls can't smell anything. But this girl, she's got a super sense of smell. Her nose is great for smelling, her whiskers for feeling, her eyes, they can see shapes and things moving, but not clear vision. But look here, Mickey Mouse ears. These are why owls have to fly so silently and have their special feathers enabling silent flight. Because if she hears a scary sound with these big funnel ears, she's out of there. Owls need silent flight to home in on their small mammal prey without spooking it. Absolutely gorgeous animals. We love rats here because they make super pets. But my goodness, if you're a barn owl, a half-grown rat like this, it makes super supper. If you look at her front, you will see she's got here and here some little starry spots on her tummy. And those spots there tell us, more than likely, she's a female barn owl. Now, female owls are bigger than male owls, but it's not always easy to tell the slight difference in size with barn owls. Those spots more or less tell you she's a female. In fact, most females have lots of spots and often a darker bib of colour here. She's quite a pale female. She doesn't have much of a bib here, but she does have plenty of spots. It's not always easy to tell though, because they're very variable in their colours. So at Icarus Falconry, our sister company, we've got I think Casper, I think he's 18 or 19-year-old barn owl. Casper, he's a boy, and he's been a boy for 18 years, right up to last spring, when he laid some eggs for us. Casper's got pretty much 0 spots here. He looks just like a male barn owl. He laid eggs. It's not always easy to tell. Barn owls are tough creatures, and if they're frightened, they'll go on the offensive. They'll make themselves look bigger. They'll clack their beaks for effect, and they will stand their ground as much as they can if they're backed into a corner for sure. Birds of prey grow up super fast, and barn owls are no exception. She hatches from an egg. They lay an average of 4 eggs, pretty roundish white eggs. They don't need speckles or patterns. They lay their eggs in dark places, holes in trees, old farmers' barns. They don't need camouflage patterns, and because they're white, the female owl can see them easier in the dusk and the darkness as she turns them and rolls them to keep them warm both sides. They can lay bumper clutches of eggs. If it's a good vole year, a short-tailed field vole has usually a 4-year cycle, in so much as after 4 years the population is often huge. Lots of food for baby owls. Barn owls sense this. They know because they're hunting them. They know how easy they are to catch. They know there's more. They lay more eggs. They usually have a boom year like that, the vole, and then a bust year where unfortunately the population crashes. Not a lot of food for barn owls, so they lay less eggs. They can lay up to a dozen eggs, barn owls, but on average it's about 4. They hatch out the little owlets, tiny, ugly things. And as they grow up, they grow their warm, fluffy down feathers to keep them warm, and very quickly they start to grow their flight feathers, their adult feathers if you like, so they can fly and leave and hunt for themselves. How quickly do barn owl chicks grow up? Well, they grow up from this big, tiny, helpless animals, to looking exactly like Plop here, completely fully feathered in about 12 weeks. How crazy is that? And at 8 weeks, they've already pretty much hit their adult weight. Amazing growth rate. You can imagine how many mice, voles and shrews the parents need to bring back to feed 4 chicks growing at that speed. They are the farmer's friend, for sure, because young rats, mice, pests to farmers are eaten in huge numbers by the barn owls, and good farmers leave set aside bits of edges of their fields still wild and meadow-like, rather than there's nothing in a monocrop field. But if they leave set aside around, somewhere for the owl to hunt and somewhere for the owl's prey to live, and good farmers even put up barn owl nest boxes. That way, they know they're going to have barn owls nearby, eating up those pesky mice and rats, for sure. fast growing. They live fast, and as we've discussed, if they're not good enough, they die fast. But the few that survive breed as soon as they're 2 years old. They're already breeding and having more owlets. We love barn owls here, and we love plop. And the strange thing is, as a falconer, someone that trains and works with birds of prey, I would tell you, birds of prey do not love us back like dogs do. Barn owls, and a few other owls, are one of the only birds of prey, if you hand rear them, that seem to like affection, just like a hand-reared parrot. Look at her. You've heard her moaning every time I've stopped stroking her. Listen, she'll complain, listen. That is her complaining, grumpy sound. She makes a range of sounds. I know what they all mean. I'm not Dr. Dolittle. I've worked with her for 10 years, remember, every single day. But the sound she doesn't make is to-wit, to-woo. That's the tawny owl. Almost no other owl says to-wit, to-woo. Many owls hoot. Barn owls cannot hoot. They can't to-wit, to-woo. They pretty much only screech. If you get to see wild barn owls, fantastic. Please go away, research some more, learn about barn owls. If you live in the UK, one of our most iconic animals here. They're one of our most beautiful species in the UK, certainly around the world. Don't ever consider getting anyone or yourself a pet barn owl. Seriously, enjoy them in every way you can. If you get a pet barn owl, 99.9% of people will seriously regret it. And I would say 99% of those owls will seriously regret it. Stay tuned, like and subscribe, because we're going to bring you all kinds of facts from Raptor Exotics and Icarus Falconry, our huge menagerie, our huge educational team. We'll bring you some more videos soon. Thanks for watching.